Donald Trump is stirring the pot once more, and this time Canada's in his sights. His bold move to overhaul trade rules is sending shockwaves through a long-standing economic alliance. For decades, the US and Canada have been like tight-knit business partners, relying on each other for industries like cars, steel, and aluminum, with goods flowing smoothly across the border. Just last year, trade between the two hit an eye-popping $900 billion, with Canada sending about $350 billion in goods southward, including the bulk of its vehicles. But now, tensions are skyrocketing. Canadians are left wondering, are we still allies? Some are even pondering a pivot. Could it be time to ditch the US and cozy up to Europe instead? That's the real bombshell. Trump's lobbed a bombshell into the fray, threatening to slam a 100% tariff on Canadian-made vehicles and metals. This isn't just a jab. It's a full-on assault on Canada's economy. The US snaps up over 2 million Canadian-built cars annually, plus heaps of steel and aluminum that go into everything from towering skyscrapers to humble soda cans. But Canada's not rolling over. They're gearing up for a fierce counterstrike. If he wants a brawl, we'll bring it, a senior official vowed, signaling they're ready to stand their ground. And their retaliation, it's sharp, calculated, and personal. A Canadian lawmaker shot back with a gutsy proposal. Hit Teslas with a 100% tax. Yep, the company run by Elon Musk, Donald Trump's apparent sidekick, might get caught in the crossfire of this intensifying trade war. Our retaliation will be sharp, not sloppy, they emphasized. But another politician doubled down, taking it a step further. If Trump keeps flexing, every Tesla rolling into Canada could get slapped with a hefty tax. Why Tesla? The target's as pointed as it gets. There's a clear logic behind it. Tesla isn't your average car maker. It's a juggernaut of American ingenuity, spearheading the electric vehicle boom and standing as a trillion-dollar giant that's redefined the auto world. But now it's also a prime bullseye in an escalating trade clash. To Canada, Tesla is more than just a shiny emblem of US corporate triumph. It's a calculated leverage point. Why? Because Tesla doesn't just ship cars across the border. It's heavily tangled in Canada's supply chain. Each year, tens of thousands of Canadians snap up Teslas. In 2024 alone, over 50,000 Tesla vehicles rolled off lots in Canada, fueled by hefty government rebates and a big drive toward eco-friendly transport. But if Canada hits Teslas with a 100% tariff, prices would skyrocket overnight. A $50,000 Model Y would jump to $100,000, transforming it into a luxury good out of reach for most. That single move would hammer Tesla's North American growth. And it cuts deeper still. Tesla doesn't just sell cars in Canada, it relies on Canada. Tesla has its sights set on Canada's abundant lithium and nickel deposits, critical ingredients for EV batteries. The company's already locked in deals with Canadian suppliers to tap these vital minerals, and without them, Tesla's whole battery production plan could spiral into disarray. Even Elon Musk has tipped his hat to Canada's value, once dubbing it a game changer for Tesla's supply chain. But that edge could flip into a weakness if Canada chooses to cut the cord. A top Canadian official laid it out plain as day. Tax our cars? Okay, we'll choke off your battery metals and ship them elsewhere. Maybe Europe, maybe China. This isn't empty talk. Canada ranks among the world's leading producers of nickel, lithium, and cobalt, all must-haves for EV batteries. If Tesla gets shut out of those supplies, it might have to scramble for shakier sources, jacking up costs, and stalling production hard. But here's the million-dollar question. Can Canada really afford to turn its back on the US and pivot its trade sights to Europe? At first glance, it seems like a gamble. The US isn't just Canada's top trading partner. It's the easiest. With a 500-mile shared border, deals happen quickly, cheaply, and seamlessly. Look at auto manufacturing. A part crafted in Ontario can roll into Detroit in mere hours. That's why about 75% of Canada's exports, roughly $450 billion annually, flow straight to the US, switching that setup for Europe. It's a logistical headache waiting to happen. Sending goods to Europe is costly and sluggish. A container sailing from Halifax to Rotterdam takes 2 weeks. A far cry from the speedy truck haul to New York or Michigan. and racks up thousands more per load. Plus, there's the rivalry. Europe's got its own auto titans like Volkswagen, BMW, and Renault, who aren't exactly desperate for Canadian imports when they've got a stack of local choices. It's a similar story with metals. European manufacturers already tap into supplies from spots like Norway and Russia. Still, that doesn't leave Canada without moves to make. In 2017, Canada locked in a hefty trade pact with the European Union, the Comprehensive Economic and Trade Agreement, CETA. It wiped out 98% of tariffs on Canadian goods flowing into the EU, smoothing the way for commerce. Since kicking in, Canadian exports to Europe have surged 30%, hitting $60 billion in 2024 alone. That's no small feat. While the US leans into protectionism with tariffs, Europe offers a steady open market of 450 million buyers. For Canada, that's a tempting backup plan. Officials are dropping hints they're not scared to switch gears, and local media is jumping on the bandwagon. One headline even blared, "We're not cornered, Plan B's ready to roll." The signal's loud and clear. Canada won't just absorb the blow. If Trump wants to crank up this trade war, Canada's primed to push back, and if that means ditching the US for Europe, the foundation's already set. European leaders are starting to perk up and pay attention. Certain voices are touting Canada's trade approach as a refreshing counter to Trump's hard-hitting tariff playbook. Take steel. Since inking its deal with the EU, Canada has shipped over 1 million tons of steel across the Atlantic, with more on the horizon. Green steel initiatives are picking up steam too. The EU's all in on low-carbon production, and Canada's hefty mineral reserves could be the linchpin. But while Europe opens fresh doors, it's not a simple swap. Shifting from the US to the EU isn't like flicking a light switch. For starters, shipping costs to Europe are triple what it takes to send goods to Chicago. Then there's the red tape. Tons of Canadian car parts would need tweaks to match European rules. And don't overlook the competition. Europe's got its own steel heavyweights in Poland and Sweden, plus Spain's auto sector isn't exactly small potatoes. Canadian products won't waltz in unchallenged. Still, Canada's eyeing the bigger picture and playing it smart. Canada's true ace in the hole, minerals. Europe's electric vehicle sector is clamoring for lithium, cobalt, and nickel, key ingredients for batteries, and Canada's sitting on vast stockpiles of them. Quebec's James Bay region is a treasure trove of resources primed to fuel the next wave of electric vehicles. With tariff-free entry via its EU trade deal, Canada's got a strong pitch. "We're not ditching the US," an Ottawa trade expert clarified, "but we're making it clear we've got choices. Europe's our fallback." And that's precisely why Tesla's caught smack in the crosshairs of this economic face-off. Tesla isn't just a symbol of American innovation, it's deeply linked to Canada. For years, Canada has fed Tesla raw materials while snapping up its electric cars in droves. But a 100% tariff would hit like a sledgehammer. Imagine a Tesla dealership in Toronto, cars piling up unsold because prices have soared out of reach, a $50,000 Model Y ballooning to $100,000, leaving most Canadians priced out. Meanwhile, Tesla's US factories, including the one in Michigan, may struggle to secure nickel, which is now being redirected to Germany. However, the impact wouldn't be limited to Tesla alone. The entire North American auto industry relies on smooth trade between Canada, the US, and Mexico under the USMCA, the modernized NAFTA agreement. Steel, aluminum, and auto parts cross borders seamlessly every day. To put it into perspective, Canada exports $15 billion worth of auto parts to the US annually, supplying factories in states like Ohio and Tennessee. Meanwhile, Mexico produces 3 million vehicles a year, many of which incorporate Canadian steel. Major automakers like Ford, GM, and Chrysler all depend on these integrated supply chains to maintain competitive costs. A 100% tariff would disrupt the entire system, potentially driving the price of a $30,000 SUV up to $40,000 overnight. American consumers would bear the financial burden, while Canadian factory towns like Oshawa could see mass layoffs. And the consequences wouldn't stop there. If supply chains begin to unravel, Mexico would also feel the impact. Without Canadian steel, the auto industry takes a hit, and the entire USMCA agreement could begin to fall apart. In the end, both countries stand to lose. U.S. consumers may wonder why their cars suddenly cost significantly more, while Canadian workers could be left questioning why their factories shut down. Why did my truck just cost me an extra $10,000? An Ohio driver might ask. Because our plants shut down, a Windsor auto worker might reply. Despite these concerns, Trump's camp maintains that the move is about protecting American jobs and keeping resources within the country. Canada, on the other hand, views this as economic coercion and isn't backing down. Their message is clear. If we're pushed into a corner, we'll take our business elsewhere. So, if the US continues to tighten the pressure, where does Canada turn next? Asia? Unlikely. Japan and Korea are too distant, and China lacks a free trade agreement with Canada. Europe, however, presents a viable alternative. With the CETA agreement in place, the EU has already removed tariffs and simplified regulations for Canadian goods, making it a more attractive option. Canada isn't standing still. It's already pivoting, increasing metal exports to Europe and exploring its next big move: auto parts. Imagine BMW manufacturing cars with Canadian steel from Nova Scotia, or French EV companies powering their batteries with lithium from Thunder Bay. It's a bold transition, but a logical one if US trade barriers continue to rise. Of course, Europe isn't as convenient a market as the US. Shipping across the Atlantic takes weeks instead of hours, and costs can soar. But in a rapidly evolving trade landscape, having an alternative market isn't just strategic, it's a necessity. Now, if you like this video, check out this next video right here.